Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dalaran, and over the past few weeks we've been covering a bunch of different class revamps arriving for the patch 11.1 over on the PTR. So far we got to cover the majority of some of the biggest changes, from massive revamps for hunters with its hero specs and as well as certain spec playstyles like marksmanship, bunch of shaman changes with a pretty fairly sizable revamp for enhancement, a bunch of major adjustments with the resources, but another class has received a significant bit of changes. It's actually the priest, as disc and holy are receiving not only restructuring within their talent trees, but also a bunch of amps to some of the baseline abilities, adjustments to cooldown reduction mechanics in order to try to help simplify, quote-unquote, some of the gameplay elements that may actually have some fairly sizable implications heading forward into Season 2. And so far, the class of Priest has had a fairly dominant position within Season 1 War Within, with Discipline Priest eating a huge bulk of that Mythic Plus representation, while Holy Priests are doing very well within the rating content, but the Season 2 is potentially looking to adjust the two specs in fairly major ways. As always, if you guys want to see more regular updates for the patch 11.1, which will be covering even more PTR updates as they arrive, hopefully more updates this week, be sure to follow the channel and subscribe. But otherwise, let's dive into some of these priest revamps. When it comes to the class of Priest, you're not seeing as many general changes as some of the other classes. Majority of 11.1 update is focused on adjusting and even revamping Holy Priest and Discipline Priest, with Holy Priest getting the biggest bulk of changes with a fairly restructured talent stream that will make the spec feel pretty new. This Priest is feeling kind of familiar, though with a handful of small but impactful adjustments within your talents. First thing first though, the tier set for the priest, I'm not a big fan of the helm, to be honest, but the rest of the tier set looks really good. Big fan of this whole almost like armored cloth thing they got going on. Even the bonuses can also be kind of sort of interesting. I am surprised to see that Shadow Priest didn't get a lot of changes in any of the builds so far for 11.1, but maybe we'll see additional adjustments in the future. That being said, I first want to start off with Disc Priest, which is one of my favorite playstyles. It is so fun with Atonement, damage to healing conversion. If you're someone who plays the ranged DPS class, I feel like Disc Priest would be the easiest one for you to at least dive into for dungeon content at the very least. For raids, it's a little bit more of a complicated spec, but for dungeons, as long as you can hit enemies super hard and do a very strong damage rotation with a little bit of Atonement setup with shields and such, I feel like that's like the easiest one for players to adjust to, with Disc Priest rocking it and being a very popular choice for Season 1 a War Within so far, and maybe potentially being good heading into Season 2, though the talent adjustment does put him in a different position where I don't really know if they're going to be that good, because there are some adjustments where it's like, yeah, there's some benefits, but then there's some drawbacks too. It's a mixed bag, a bit of a give and a take when it comes to some of the Disc Priest changes. One of those changes is Evangelism moved up way higher into the talent tree, much easier to pick up, taking place of Rapture. On one hand, Evangelism has been adjusted where it will still extend the duration of atonements like it does in raids, so very strong mechanic, but it now has this immediate healing component as well, but those split amongst allies that you heal. So in a big raid situation where you have a bunch of people, like 20 players, affected by atonement, that healing is not going to be as effective. But for smaller group content like dungeons, across 5 players, it's about a mil heal for everybody. In a PvP situations like 2s and 3s, like solos and such, that is a fairly sizable heal that could just boost somebody fairly high and can also crit, as you can see. So that can be a huge emergency heal on a 1.5 minute cooldown, though it does need a little bit of setup because you need to make sure that only certain targets have atonement if you're trying to really maximize that healing benefit. That being said, what I think they wanted to do is try to make a flexible ability that works in raids, but also has value within smaller group content like M+ and PvP. That's meant to be elegant and flexible, as some people would describe it. But you do lose Rapture. What I liked about Rapture is the emergency heal with those shields, so you can just start popping those shields on everybody. Great in dungeons, great in Mythic Plus, even great in raids because it allowed Disc Priest to have some great spot healing and emergency healing. So as things go haywire, you can just start shielding everybody, or as many players as you can, with the limited number of Rapture shields that you can get, but they were highly impactful. So now Evangelism replaces it, and I don't think it's as good of an emergency button. It's more of a setup button. You really do need to make sure the atonement's on the right targets in order to give that emergency healing. Maybe in Mythic Plus, healing everybody for 1 million can be pretty good to like top everybody up, but with the health threshold, health pools we're starting to get into like close to 10 million health for a healer spec. Like, we're really close to that healing numbers. I mean, actually, you could basically reach 10 million if you get some of the, just a little bit more stamina. Like, a million health, a million heal for a 10 mil health pool is like a drop in a bucket at this point. So if you are really trying to maximize evangelism, even the split mechanic, you will have to do setup. I guess what I'm saying is Disc Priest has become more of a setup spec with evangelism rather than emergency heal opportunity with Rapture being gone, which isn't great. Though what is great is talents like Divine Procession. Smite extends the duration of an active atonement by 3 seconds. This could be any atonement, so if you have, let's say, a single ally with atonement and you could just keep smiting the same target. So I want to see if I can just put up a Tuskar train dummy, but you can see it just, if I just keep smiting the train dummy, now I got atonements on multiple targets. It'll just gotta extend the duration of one of the atonements that's currently active. It doesn't really pick which atonement it wants to extend. It doesn't try to extend like the most short-lived atonement. Sometimes it can extend one single ally's atonement again and again just randomly. It has a bit of RNG behind it, but if, let's say, you do have a single ally with an atonement and you just keep spamming atonement or smite over and over, technically you can just keep extending the atonement for a very long time. This is generally seen as a good talent. A lot of people liked it back in Dragonflight, but also with Divine Procession, you do have the talent of Contrition becoming baseline. Contrition wasn't getting a lot of play because it's not that good, but it's now baked into Penance. So Penance can do this atonement healing, you do damage and you'll heal an extra ally, or Contrition now baked into it where if you heal an ally with Penance, everybody with your atonement is also healed for a very small number. Not the craziest heal. Atonement healing is going to be a lot better, but if you do need to barrel in a full of penance, single target to heal somebody all the way for like a million healing, that atonement healing is at least going to heal everybody with an atonement, at least a little bit. It's not as effective, but it's better than nothing. Void Summon has also been adjusted where the cooldown reduction used to come from Mind Blast, Penance, and Smites. And your Mind Bender and Shadow Fiend are a fairly big part of your Disc Priest, because if, let's say, you put up atonements on an ally and you send your pet, as you do damage, that atonement healing, or that healing from your pet, that atonement healing is going to heal everybody that also has your atonement too. The pet is a huge contribution of your overall damage. It is massive. So the more smites you can get, the more mind blast you can get, the faster cooldown you can get for the pet, the more often you could use it. But that also meant that priests had to sit there and spam smite again and again and again, and missing castle smite meant that you may miss your big void summoner window with your pet. So if, let's say, you needed good throughput for your group, but you need to move, your cooldown reduction of Void Summoner is hampered. But now that you can only do it through Mind Blast and Penance, which are fast casts. Like, you could cast a Mind Blast, then you could reposition with a Penance, you could do a couple of smites, and you could go for some shields. And as long as you're able to hit those Mind Blasts and Penances whenever they are up off cooldown, you are getting the most value from the cooldown reduction. So basically, less need to just stand there and spam and smites. When it comes to Disc Priest, though, I do think the timing for that pet is going to be a little bit different. You're not going to be able to get him back as aggressively as you could for Season 1. Speaking about cooldown reduction, there's also a Train of Thought talent that's missing. Kinda hate this one, but that one used to also work off of Smites. Smites would reduce the cooldown of your Power Shield, as well as Penance, and you can see how that would have also combined together and collapsed into Void Summoner for even better cooldown reduction. So, better cooldown reduction, but also not really for Disc Priest. If you're someone who doesn't like managing CDR as much, you're probably pretty happy that it's a little bit more static. If you're someone who loved the fast-paced gameplay and cooldown management of Disc Priest, you're probably not the biggest fan of this either. Now, another talent that's also pretty good is Ultimate Penance. That's become a center talent that's a little bit easier to reach, and it can be easily weaved in as part of everyone's build. It is just as strong as it was before, though now there's no longer a cooldown reduction talent for Ultimate Penance. So this ability is now stuck at 4-minute cooldown, but it becomes a little bit more rigid in terms of how you use it. It is still highly effective, but a 4-minute cooldown is a weird one. It's not like 2-minute or 3-minute, which is what most classes have. I almost would have loved for them to maybe reduce the effectiveness of Ultimate Penance, but give it a slightly shorter cooldown so you have a little more flexibility of when you could use it. But I guess I wanted to make this ability as massively effective as possible. The big button for Disc Priest to use within raids or within dungeons, but it is cool that you at least can pick it up a little bit easier. Also, no more Purge the Wicked. Now Shadow War Pain can get all the benefits, quote unquote, of Purge the Wicked. But the problem is, it still has a very short duration. What was cool about Purge the Wicked is the long duration of the ability, but Shadow War Pain, in comparison, it has a very short duration. 16 seconds is not a long time. You're probably going to notice yourself refreshing this dot more often on Disc Priest. Not a big fan of it, personally. Would have loved for them to at least extend the duration of Shadow War Pain, But yeah, I kind of miss Forge the Wicked just for the extra duration. Would have loved for them to make it into Encroaching Shadows or maybe Revel in Darkness, any one of these talents, so that you basically don't lose out, quote unquote, on that similar functionality. Outside of this, they also wanted to adjust Void Weaver and Oracle for Disc Priest a little bit. With Void Weaver, it's been a very popular pick so far, very strong in most forms of content. So of course, it's getting a bit of a nerf in 11.1. The actual Entropic Rift ability, the rift you get to summon, its damage has been reduced by 20% in patch 11.1. I think Void Weaver is still probably, and this is just, none of the final tuning numbers are final, but someone tells me Void Weaver is still probably going to have a play with Disc Priest. I'm assuming it's just a very, very strong build. Just a very, very good one that really leans it into the atonement healing, the damage component of it. And I feel like that's something that Disc Priest can really leverage quite a bit. The damage output it can do is kind of nice, honestly, with the Tropic Rift, but with some of the other things they did, like cooldown reduction of penance being shortened, and now they're reducing the damage of Rift, and how Rift can grow in power as you use more penances, but which you can't use as much anymore. I think Void Weaver is going to take a bit of a tumble, but it will likely be still a very, very powerful option going forward. Where they really wanted to change up Disc Priest is in the Oracle builds, and particularly in terms of making them a little bit more playable. Because Disc Priests do play Oracle, mostly in PvP content, or if you need on-demand burst healing, but Void Weaver is generally a very, very good one as well. Now, I do need myself another, I think it's Turnip, yeah, Turnip trading dummy to show this off, because the new talents for Oracle do look quite impactful. First of all, Premonition. Basically, if you haven't played with Premonition as Oracle, every 45 seconds you get a buff that could either give you big cooldown reduction on next 3 abilities. So you can spam out a bunch of shields or spam out a bunch of penances as Disc Priest. Pretty cool. Or you can get Premonition of Piety that increases your healing, and a portion of overhealing is also redistributed to other allies, so more healing for a short window. Or you get a Soulless buff, which is a massive shield that also reduces the damage the ally takes. And after you rotate through all of this, we basically get the big clairvoyance where you get all 3 effects up at the same time, where then you go back to using Premonition. Premonition gives you all these different buffs, and they go in a specific order. First Insight, then Piety, and then Soulless, and then it gives you the capstone for all 3 that are active. And they're basically making this so this talent starts out with 2 charges instantly. You're no longer need to pick up a talent that makes it from a single charge to a 2 charge. That power is being baked baseline into Premonition, which is a huge. That's a decent power spike because it allows them to add a new talent to further improve Oracle. And for Disc Priest, it's a very interesting called Twin Sight. 3 additional penance bolts are fired at an enemy if you use it to heal an ally, or 3 additional bolts will be fired at an ally if you use penance to damage an enemy. So now when you penance, you get a free penance as well. So let's say I heal an ally, I fire a penance offensively, and you'll see second penance healing a nearby ally. It's actually kind of cool. You get 2 penances for the price of 1. So I think that's actually very, very interesting. Plus the visuals of the Oracle look absolutely amazing. But you can see, yeah, the actual penances themselves, how they split. So if I use it to heal, it continues to do damage with atonement healing. If you use it for damage, it'll actually just heal a nearby ally for freebie. So I almost feel like you may actually want to start using it to heal an ally, so you can have at least control of who is getting healed, because it would be kind of annoying if, let's say, Penance keeps healing an ally that's very, very healthy. I'd rather throw it at a tank or at an ally in a Mythic Plus that's kind of low on health and needs to be topped off. So you might actually say using Penances to heal allies because you get freebies to deal damage and vice versa. I like this talent change a lot. I think this is a very, very interesting one. And it gets all the benefits from Penances as well. Like any of the power-ups that buff the effectiveness of your penance, like your power dark side. From what I've been able to test, all those benefits seems to also apply for the split penance as well. All of those penances even get a different animation with all covered in shadow, whether you use it to heal or to damage. So it seems like it's a very kind of an impactful talent overall. I think this is probably the most interesting change for Disc Priest is this Oracle and the Twin Sight. I kind of like this. I need to test this out a little bit more, play around with it some more, but I think this could be interesting to potentially make Oracle maybe a little bit better for Disc. I still think Wood Weaver, at least if I had to guess, probably Wood Weaver is still going to be the more played option, but I kind of like the change they did to Oracle and Disc Priest, plus some of the cooldown reduction mechanics and things you could do with Premonition. I think those are all very, very interesting, and I really will explore Oracle some more as of this recent build, which we're actually getting some new dungeons to dive into, so it'll be the perfect place for me to test all of these new things. From there, we'll move on to the spec of Holy Priest, which I don't play nearly as much as I should. That being said, though, when it comes to Priest, most players I feel like choose Holy, as it is the most straightforward healer in the game. It has a little bit of healing over time. It has big AoE healing, burst healing. It has every type of healing component you can think of, as well as some of the more unique healing components like the Prayer of Mending bouncing heal effects. So this spec has gone through a fairly sizable rework this time around. It looks very familiar if you play Holy Priest regularly, but the actual talents themselves and the positions for them open up so much more capability for Holy Priest in particular. So first things first, if you don't really play a lot of Holy, they mostly play around Holy Word mechanics. So they have big Holy Word like Holy Word Serenity, which is a massive burst, instant cast, single target heal. Then you have a Holy Word Sanctify, which is a big bursty AoE heal, and you use those abilities instantly. Those are the big buttons that you have. So abilities like single target, Serenity, or Sanctify, they're very, very effective. And they also have baked in cooldown reduction. As you use your single target heals for like heal or flash heal, that single target burst healing of Serenity actually gets some cooldown reduction and comes back a little quicker. As you use AoE healing buttons for your Sanctify, it reduces the cooldown of that Holy Word. So it has this natural big burst, and then you use other abilities to bring it back a little quicker. So there's now going to be a little bit more cooldown reduction component with Voice of Harmony, which has been moved up and revamped a little. Prayer of Mending, as well as Holy Word Life, both reduce the cooldown of Holy Word Serenity by 4 seconds. Prayer of Mending in particular is really cool because you could get a lot of Prayer of Mendings out pretty regularly. It's a pretty huge component of your overall healing as a priest, so that means a massive cooldown reduction for the spec in particular. Halo, as well as Divine Star, reduce the cooldown of Holy Word Sanctify by 4 seconds, and if you play Archon, you have this Halo component where you get to grow these Halos out of your character, and they basically get 3 Halos for the price of 1. So if, let's say, I use the ability of my Sanctify and I press Halo, it'll get a reduction for the first Halo, and will expand, contract, and will send out a new Halo, which will continuously add cooldown reduction for my Sanctify. And then I'll get a third Halo, which also adds more cooldown reduction. So there's baked in synergy with an Archon and the Halo components, as well as cooldown reduction of Sanctify, how you got 3 uses of it for the price of 1, which I think is really, really cool. Offensively, Holy Fire is another Holy Word ability that Holy Word Chastise does holy damage, incapacitate a target, can also stun it if you give Censure. Holy Fire can now also be used, normally just Smite, but now Holy Fire as well can be used to reduce the cooldown of Chastise as well. So basically better cooldown reduction for Holy Priest. I'm a huge fan of it in particular, and I feel like it gives you a little bit more playability with some of those talents and some of the synergies and combos, especially like Prayer of Mending, because there's so many different talents that work off of Prayer of Mending that could give you a lot of cooldown reduction and a lot of big value. Besides this, we have a slew of new talents being added, like a Dragonfly tier set of Lasting Words. Holy Word Serenity and Holy Word Sanctify now apply for free a few seconds of renew to either its target or multiple targets with Sanctify. Pretty strong tier set back in the day, may actually see some play in the future. Then we have some very impactful talents like Light and Darkness, increasing the healing of Holy Word Serenity and Holy Word Sanctify by 40%, which is a fairly sizable increase. Also increasing the radius of your AoE Sanctified by 30%, making it much easier for you to land those AoE heals as allies are spread apart. You also get a little bit more AoE healing from single target effects, which allows you to play a more single target heavy build. This one is going to be either Dispersing Light, where a portion of healing done by heal, flash heal, power word life is now replicated to 4 injured allies, or Trail of Light, which is not new, but now it's a choice between AoE healing for 4 allies or healing a secondary ally for 35% of that single target healing, which is also pretty good as well. Apotheosis also becomes a talent that's a little bit easier to pick up. Like the whole middle row, you have the Guardian Spirit, later down the line Divine Hymn, further down Apotheosis. A little bit more like, hey, I probably should make Apotheosis part of my build. It's a lot more centralized, so it's easier to get into. But now there's 2 talents that further amplify Apotheosis. Apotheosis is a pretty strong cooldown. If you're not familiar with Holy Priest, it basically allows you to reset the cooldown of your Holy Words, and then you enter a pure holy form of a priest, where the cooldown reduction of your your holy words is increased, but also the cost of those abilities is reduced, which allows you to use them more regularly, more aggressively, while not have to worry about mana. It's like a big healing button for you. Now you could either have your holy words extend the duration of apotheosis, so the more of them you use, the more of them you could machine gun and barrel out, the longer duration you can have of apotheosis, or you can get the Talent of Divinity, which increases the healing by 10% while apotheosis is active, and casting apotheosis will cause the next 3 heal or prayer of healing, which help reduce the cooldown of your holy word abilities, to be instant cast and heal for 25% more. So it's like a bigger burst window of your apotheosis, or a slightly longer duration, so you can get more holy words, more bang for your buck every time you use the ability. So that all seems like a very, very powerful cooldown set. Also, when it comes to the class spec of Priest, the ability of Renew is generally a button that's at some points of the expansion has been ignored. Like, it's just at some points people don't even put it up on their bars, and if you do get procs of Renew, you'll usually get it from maybe your passes, from other talents, or maybe from a tier set, but it's a button that a lot of the times priests won't really focus into super heavily, even though they do pick it up because it is a baseline, but it doesn't always see a lot of big play. So they're trying to make Renew a little bit stronger with a new talent called Empowered Renew. Renew now reduces the cooldown of Sanctify by an additional 6 seconds, and heals for 60% more when you cast it, but has a 12-second cooldown. So with the new empowered version of Renew, now it heals for like 275,000, which is not that bad at all, in fact. And there's also other talents that can synergize with Renew, so like allies that healed by Renew, they could get a little bit more healing. In fact, let me actually just type in the word Renew, and you can see all the different ways that Renew could be amped up. Like with Prismatic Echoes, you could further increase the healing of your Renew by up to 30% on top of it. If you play Divine Word, you can technically, with the buff of Serenity, increase the heal of Renew by 30% more as well. Prayer Mending now has a 12% chance to relieve a Renew on the targeted heals, which could get the benefits of Empowered Renew, and whenever Prayer Mending jumps to an ally with Renew, you can also heal them as well. So it's just like some other synergies, but of course there's also other talents that can further amplify the effectiveness of the ability as well. Now, there's actually a very exciting talent if you played Holy Priest during expansion of Legion, and if you remember that Battle Res legendary for back in the day. I guess they brought that legendary back in Shadowlands for a little bit too, but it was got a lot more use back in Legion. So the Battle Res legendary became at some point a talent for Priest called Restitution, though it was always in a weird spot where you couldn't really reach it all that easily and use it for every single Priest build. Like the abilities of Divine Hymn and even Apotheosis, they put that center, front and center, competing against Guardian Angel. So Guardian Angel, if it saves the target but doesn't get consumed, you get slightly shorter cooldown, or after you die and you become a Spirit of Redemption, after it expires, you then revive with 100% health based on your healing done. So this is a very cool talent because it has so much interesting play for Holy Priest. This can be used strategically in certain raid fights to sacrifice a priest with a certain mechanic, and they'll just res themselves back up afterwards. This has been used in the past with so many different ways where priests can basically continue to play the game and even use the Spirit of Redemption to create an opportunity where they could just stand there, ignore mechanics, and pump heals as much as possible. It's a very interesting talent that now, with Restitution being way up here in the talent tree, makes him a lot more aggressive in terms of being able to grab this CD or grab this cheat death mechanic. It is very strong. Big fan of it in particular because in Legion it was incredibly good, and I'm kind of happy that this is a talent that's now going to be a little bit easier to pick up. Besides this, Holy Priest also gets a variety of different buffs as well. All healing increased by 8%. Holy Mending increased by 30%. Prayer of Healing increased by 40%, which has been this button over here. The mana cost reduced by 25%, but the cast time is slightly longer, though if you have a decent enough haste build, which looks like some haste builds may be becoming a thing over in a PTR, it doesn't really take that long. Cosmic Ripple, which is a talent over here, got a new icon, but also its healing has been amped up by 150%, as well as Light Well's Threshold before it starts to heal an ally is now 75% health instead of 50% health, so he's going to start healing with Lightwell a lot more aggressively, so he can get all of his charges and used up fairly easily. Also, Holy Priests don't really have too many choices to pick from between their capstones. I mean, the abilities of Lightbearer, as well as Lightwell and Divine Image and Answer Prayers, are all separate by themselves. The only one that I choice out is Divine Ward versus Lasting Words, but the rest of them are separated, and if you want to pick up both Lightwell and Lightweaver, you totally could. So it gives you a lot more freedom in terms of how you customize your priest, with less choices to pick from, but now more talents that can be combined together and synergize together depending on the kind of build you're playing for Holy Priest as well. Lastly, Holy as an Oracle build with Twin Sight also gets some unique value to it, where Disc Priest I feel like get probably the better combo of double penance. Holy gets a additional 2 stacks of Prayer of Mending that is placed on a random second ally within 46 yards. So if you're playing like a big Prayer of Mending build, there may be some value to it, just being able to spread Prayer of Mendings everywhere with multiple stacks and multiple charges. That could be very, very good, but it's hard to tell if it's going to be that good. Or at least right now, based on some of the recommendations, it looks like priests are basically prioritizing Archon, at least as of this moment. Maybe some future adjustments, and maybe I just need to explore more talent builds in the future, but right now it does seem like Archon is looking like a pretty significantly impactful hero spec going forward for Holy, and we'll see if Oracle gets any play, but right now Archon does seem to be slightly stronger, at least when it comes to raid PvE content. Though, as always, I do want to thank all of you guys so much for watching, and hope you guys did enjoy this video update. If you did enjoy it or found it informative, go ahead and give it a like. It would very much appreciate it. Join our Discord community where we're posting even more regarding patch 11.1 PTR, which may actually be getting a brand new build sometime this week, as it announced a couple of more Mythic Plus testing changes. As always, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and as always, I'll see all of you guys in the next one.